For such a turning point in my life, the night I bought the item that doomed me couldn't have been more ordinary. No dusty old book pulled from a forgotten shelf. No mysterious peddler on a darkened street. Just me, sitting in my apartment in Norton, Massachusetts, idly scrolling through Amazon after work. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, half watching a basketball game on mute, half sipping a beer, when an ad popped up for a pair of high-end wireless headphones. They were brand new, sealed in the box, heavily discounted for some reason I didn't bother to question. I'd been meaning to replace my old earbuds anyway. A few clicks later, the order was placed. I remember thinking it was the most boring purchase I'd made all month.
3 days later, they arrived.
Sleek, black, comfortable. They paired with my phone instantly. Sound crisp and perfect. The timing was great. My favorite horror podcast had just dropped a new episode. That night after dinner, I decided to take them for a walk through the quiet streets of Norton. It was early autumn, the kind of night where the air smells faintly of wood smoke and the leaves crunch under your shoes. The moon was out, pale and high, casting silver light over the cracked sidewalks. I headed toward the outskirts of town without thinking, lost in the familiar voices of the podcast hosts, dissecting some grisly, unsolved murder. That's when I found myself in front of it, the old Maynard house.
Everyone in Norton knows about it. Once a sprawling Victorian home, it had been abandoned for decades after a string of tragedies no one talks about in detail. Windows boarded, paint peeling, the porch sagging under its own weight. Kids dared each other to go up the front steps on Halloween, but most didn't make it past the rusted gate. I'd walked past it 100 times before, without so much as a second glance. But that night, I slowed down. The hosts on the podcast were mid-sentence when the sound changed. It wasn't the usual buffering or a glitch. It was like the air in my ears thickened, muffling everything into a low hum. Then, faintly, underneath that hum, voices, not the podcast hosts. Dozens of voices, layered and tangled, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Some were fast, too quick to catch. Others were slow, almost dragging their words. I caught snatches in English, my name, what I was wearing, the fact that I was standing outside their house. Some voices spoke in languages I didn't recognize, and a few didn't sound human at all. I stopped dead in the street. The podcast was still playing under it all, but now it was distant, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. My pulse climbed into my throat. One voice cut through the rest, dry, diseased, like it was breathing through wet cloth. "He hears us," it said. I tore the headphones off and staggered back from the gate. My phone screen was still lit, the podcast timer ticking along like nothing had happened. My breathing came in sharp, fast bursts, and I told myself it was just a glitch, a weird audio overlap, nothing supernatural. I kept walking, forcing myself to take a longer route home, but the silence in the headphones felt wrong now. I didn't put them back on. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the sound in my head. Eventually, I convinced myself I had overreacted. Around midnight, I put the headphones back on, lying in bed, and hit play on a different podcast. The audio was perfect. No whispers, no hum. I was just starting to relax when the static came back. Slow at first, like the sound of paper tearing, then building until it drowned out the voices on the show. And then, beneath it, the same chorus of whispers. This time they weren't just talking, they were laughing. I yanked the headphones off again. My room was dark except for the faint blue glow of my computer monitor across the room. I reached for the power button, but froze. The monitor flickered. Lines of static rolled up the screen, distorting into shifting black and white snow. And then, in the middle of it, shapes began to form. At first, it looked like a silhouette of a man, shoulders hunched. Then the outline sharpened, the static clinging to him like wet cloth. With a sound like tearing paper, an arm pushed out of the monitor, gray skin too smooth, fingers long and twitching. Another arm followed. The figure's head slammed against the inside of the screen once, twice, 3 times before bursting through with a wet crack that turned my stomach. It landed on the floor with a sickening flop, its upper body twisting unnaturally as it pulled its legs free from the glowing static. The smell hit me then, old paper, damp wood, and rotting meat. It moved toward me on all fours, its limbs jerking in short, unnatural bursts. The glow from the monitor cast its face, or what passed for one, into stark relief. No eyes, no nose, just a wide slit of a mouth stretching too far across its head. I pressed myself back against the wall, my phone clutched in one hand like it could protect me. "Why are you here?" I stammered. It stopped inches from my face. The smell of decay filled my lungs. "You heard us," it whispered. "When you listen, you belong to us now." It laughed then, a hollow, joyless sound that rattled in my bones. And just like that, it was gone. The room was empty, the static gone from the monitor, my headphones lying on the bed where I'd dropped them. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I drove to a thrift store 2 towns over and left the headphones on the counter without saying a word. A symbolic gesture, I told myself, but it didn't help. Because now, every night, they come. The man from the static, bending in ways no human body should, standing in the corner of my room, his mouth stretched into something that might be a grin. And behind him, in the shadows, dozens of others whispering, always whispering. If you ever find yourself passing by the old Maynard house and you hear something strange in your headphones, turn them off. Don't listen. Because once they know you're listening, they'll never let you go.